abortion is a thrill.
This is decades of progress erased.
It's absolutely heartbreaking.
This is an incredibly dark day in our nation's history.
What do we do? It's definitely an emotional day for probably both sides.
Abortion could soon be illegal or greatly restricted in more than half the states.
And I am hopeful that the state legislatures across the country will take action and swiftly pass protections for our vulnerable babies.
The whole world is watching. In a moment when everything seems so uncertain, we want you to know that we've got your back.
There's nothing in the Constitution giving the federal government the right to regulate abortion.
The stage will be set for women to be sentenced to death in cases of medical necessity.
They will hemorrhage. They will experience severe infection. They will go into organ failure. They will die and leave their families behind.
We've killed 62 million of our own children. There has to be a better way.
Don't choose abortion.
They know they're on the wrong side of history and on the wrong side of the American people.
As a woman who has had an abortion myself, I can really speak to the fact that abortion not only hurts the child, but it hurts the mother.
It's such an insult. It's a slap in the face to women.
When the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, abortion took center stage in a heated discussion of politics and policy. In this show, we take on the abortion debate and start with Tom Stevens of the Pro-Life Union of Greater Philadelphia.
When the Dobbs decision came, I literally wept because I knew, I did. I knew, I got tingles. I knew that 10,000 to 70,000 babies might be alive in 2023. That wouldn't have been if it hadn't happened.
Tell me about your fundamental belief on the issue of abortion. Why are you opposed to it? Why are you opposed to it when the argument would be that a woman should have rights over and dominion over her own body? Why are you opposed as a group?
It's because a baby is a human who has rights that need to be protected. And so a woman has a right to choose, but not choose over a person, a body, a human who's not her own. A baby is distinct DNA, distinct person, distinct future, and it's not just a blob of tissue in her, but it's actually a human.
When does life exist in your view?
It's not in my view, it's factual. It begins at fertilization, and you could look at a medical textbook and embryology textbook and find that. And then throughout all stages, there's development throughout pregnancy and then afterwards.
So it begins at conception in your view?
That's correct.
Even though that is a view that simply is rejected by the other side?
Well, if you're Planned Parenthood and you're making your money by doing abortions, then certainly you'll reject that and you'll sell it. It gets marketed all the time. But the truth is the truth. And so it's rejected. And if you're a mom who has had a pregnancy terminated, you're going to reject it because you can't deal with the fact that you actually killed your own child.
Wow, and that is your view. That is the organization's view. That's
correct.
Even early on, you have killed your own child if you have an abortion.
That's a tough truth, a really tough truth.
What do you folks do to make your argument, to sort of make abortion go away as you want?
It depends who we're talking to, but we first point out the facts. The truth is that it's not my body, my choice. It's their body. It's another body, my choice. But my choice has to be to care and nurture that body throughout pregnancy and beyond.
So you do go to Planned Parenthood centers that do abortions, and you try to advocate and talk to folks going in and out of there, don't you?
That's right. I do that personally, and we recruit others and train them to do so. Why are we there?
Yes.
We're there to pray for the women going in and the unborn child who might be about to lose their life.
You said that the woman could ruin her life by making that decision. How?
Well, first of all, you've taken away the joy of a baby from your life.
If they can't support the baby,
well,
if they know that financially they can't do it.
Yeah, they may discover that they can. Sometimes you think, I could never climb that mountain. I could never do this thing. And then when you're given the opportunity, or you're forced to do it because you don't see any other way, or you choose to do something good, you can do more than you think you can.
But we're talking in the poorest big city in America, where in some neighborhoods people live in abject poverty. Can those women, can they do more than they think they can?
You've got to find a way. If you're pregnant, same thing. Now, we have a societal problem. Poverty, foster care system, violence. But we don't kill somebody to solve the problem. We've got to address the societal problem. We just opened up a pregnancy family center in Frankfurt, specifically in an impoverished area, and that's called the Cenacle. The purpose is to give impoverished folks the hope, the help they need, and help them to say yes to their pregnancy.
And last question I have for you, what will be the impact in the midterm elections in your view?
Impact of the Dobbs decision? Abortion?
Yes.
Oh, I think it's huge.
Does it work for you or the other side?
I think really the overturn of Roe v. Wade has worked for the other side, and this is why, is because it's made them afraid, and it's got them saying, hey, we've got to protect this right.
When we come back, the pro-choice view of Planned Parenthood. Joining us now is Lindsay Molden of Planned Parenthood of Southeastern PA. Do you somehow wonder how it is folks who see this issue as you do, in essence, lost this? How it got away from you?
You know, I don't know that it got away. I think what's happened is that the conversation around abortion has become very political. And what happens is folks find themselves and feel that they need to be on one side or the other, when really what we're talking about is life-saving essential health care and a personal health decision that 1 in 4 individuals will make in their lifetime. And I think what's happened is that folks have gone to their respective camps, have not had the conversation about really what's at stake here, which again is bodily autonomy and individuals' ability to make their own healthcare decisions.
What do you think the view is, the majority view is on abortion in Pennsylvania? Do you think that most folks are with you, or do you think that possibly they're not, and that's representative of what the Supreme Court did?
Poll after poll has shown across the country and here in Pennsylvania, and even in some of the most conservative states, voters oppose restricting abortion access. This goes across party lines. This goes across religious affiliation. Poll after poll shows that voters do not want politicians interfering in their healthcare decisions. Folks might personally be anti-abortion, but they certainly don't want the legislature, and certainly not the Constitution, to be making their medical decisions for them.
Yet in conservative states, that is exactly what elected officials have done. They have restricted abortion to significant amounts, even though you're saying the polling doesn't represent that. How has this schism happened?
The schism comes back to education and letting voters know what these policies actually mean. The politics take away from what's actually happening here, which is that legislators are putting forward policies that will absolutely impact your ability to access health care.
I hear this all the time from folks with your belief. Abortion is health care.
Abortion is health care because 1 in 4 individuals will access this care in their lifetime. When we talk about an example of an ectopic pregnancy, which is a pregnancy that's formed outside of the womb and the fallopian tubes, the only way to mitigate that and to save the life of a mother in that situation is to terminate the pregnancy. What we're seeing in other states is that women are unable to access that care. Doctors are afraid to provide that abortion care to that individual, and women are being told to wait until they are really sick to come back to the hospital. Sepsis could set in, in a time frame that could be absolutely detrimental. We already know that accessing healthcare for a lot of folks can be burdensome, taking time off work, having to travel. And so what we're seeing in other states is that folks are not able to access the care that they need. The relationship between them and their provider has been intruded upon by the government, and the implications are dire.
Life begins at conception, and when you abort, then you are literally killing a baby. I'm sure we'll hear this argument and others that come on this show. What is your counter to that?
What I would say is that in states where we have seen abortion bans come up, we have seen maternal and infant mortality rates rise. We know that policies restricting and taking away access to healthcare do not help to deal with issues of healthcare. We also know that taking away and banning abortion doesn't stop abortion from happening. Individuals are going to need to access that care. And unfortunately, if it's illegal, they might have to do so by means that are unsafe and that take them away from their ability to work with their provider to access that care.
How does your organization view Lindsey Graham's fairly surprising offer of a couple of weeks ago of a 15-week national abortion window? What do you think of that?
Any abortion ban, again, we think is egregious and takes away from an individual's ability to access care.
But from a policy argument, I mean, to say that, hey, there should be no real restriction, doesn't that open your side up to this idea of critics saying, well, you want unlimited abortion. You want no restrictions at all. You want 24 weeks to fall away, too. Don't you open yourself up to that sort of criticism?
I assume that one could make the argument that we would, but I would also, again, say that when it comes to these medical decisions, these are decisions that should be left between a doctor and a patient.
We have a race for governor, and we have a race for the U.S. Senate. How will abortion play here?
We're hearing in every race across the state and at the congressional level that abortion is the issue that voters are concerned about. And so for us, we're kind of looking forward to see what happens. The governor's race, like I said, could not be more important. We've seen already in Governor Wolf's tenure him using his veto pen to oppose any restrictions on abortion. We know how important Congress is with the recent 15-week ban put up by Lindsey Graham. So again, this election could not be more important for voters.
When we return, a woman who considered abortion but kept her baby. Welcome back. Rakia Carey is a new mom after considering an abortion. You became pregnant.
Yes.
And had to make a decision whether to abort or to keep your child. Tell me what that decision was like. How did you make that decision?
That decision was drastic. I had to think about where I was going to sleep at, or even if I was going to eat. Like, I had to decide, am I going to be financially ready for a whole baby by myself as a single mother? So I just said to myself, I want to keep my baby because there are resources out there that can help you with your child. This is Keandre Carey.
This is the baby that you decided to bring to full term and have, obviously.
Yeah,
so when you became pregnant, you did consider aborting an abortion.
Yes.
And because you thought that you simply could not financially do this.
Yes.
Tell me, what was your life like at the time? What was going on?
I was depressed. I was crying. I was trying to make a quick decision because I was running out of time. I was like 22 weeks pregnant, and they said I could abort up to 24 weeks. I felt like the weight just lifted off my shoulders when I had them. I was like, I just couldn't kill him.
And that's what you thought that would be if you had had abortion, that you would have been killing your child.
Yes.
Where were you at the time? Or were you inside one of these centers to care for you, affiliated with the union, or?
Yes. Guiding Star is a pregnancy home, maternity home for young mothers that could help them get through life.
In the city of Philadelphia?
Yes.
And what did they do for you?
They did a lot for me. They helped me with parenting classes. They helped me build my strength.
I mean, would you make the argument then, having this baby and deciding that you could raise the baby in some way made you a stronger and better adult to be able to live your life better?
Yes, because if I didn't have him, I would have never moved into Guiding Star. I would have been struggling out in the streets still.
Do you think women who make a different decision than you, who do abort fetuses, do you believe they're wrong in that?
Yes, I believe they're wrong.
You do believe they're wrong?
Yes.
Why? Tell me why.
Because you don't know what opportunities they have out in the world for you.
If you do have your child and there isn't this kind of support, what are women to do then who aren't as fortunate as you? Any idea?
You just have to keep praying on just trying to make it work. You can't, try to abort your son or daughter. Kids are a very special gift from God.
Should abortion be legal or should it not?
No, it shouldn't be, because once again, you're killing a soul that once it's in you and once it's grown in you, you're literally killing a baby.
And when we come back, an area abortion provider. Joining us now is Lin Fan Wang. She is a family physician, a doctor, and she's affiliated with Planned Parenthood locally. How do you then look at the effort to restrict the period in which people can have abortions?
It's so challenging, and especially for me, just emotionally and as a provider, it's very challenging because I have patients who sit in front of me, right, day to day, who are having to deal with these restrictions. After the Dobbs decision was released, I worked at Planned Parenthood, and I had patients who came up to me crying because they were so fearful that the same restrictions would affect Pennsylvania, right? Abortion is one of the most common medical procedures in the United States. And it's really important for us to leave these types of decisions to the patient that is affecting and in consultation with their provider. These are deeply personal medical decisions. For me as a provider, I think it's important for all of us to really think about what kind of healthcare do we want? What kind of healthcare do we want our children to have, our mothers to have, our sisters to have, and do everything that we can to protect and roll back these restrictions that are happening. And whether it's by voting, by raising your voice, by speaking out, by sharing your stories with other people, right? Like, I think we all have to do what we can to really say, this is the type of healthcare we think that everyone deserves.
What do you say of those who say abortion is simply murder, that you are killing a baby? What's your argument there?
Yeah, so I as a physician and a healthcare provider, my job is to respect the belief of the patient sitting in front of me. And so if a patient says, I'm pregnant, I don't want to be pregnant, but I believe abortion is murder, so I'm going to continue this pregnancy, I honor and respect that decision. These decisions are very complex, that people have very complex lives, and that we have to trust people to make the decisions that are best for them.
See, do you have patients who see this in a more callous way? That see abortion, and forgive me if this offends, as birth control?
I'm glad that you asked that question because in Pennsylvania, we do have a 24-hour mandatory waiting period. And so what we are required to do is to go through an informed consent process with a patient seeking abortion. And then they are required to wait 24 hours until they are able to actually have their abortion.
Have you been harassed, threatened? I know that some have. Has that happened to you?
I do work at one clinic where the protesters are allowed to come into the parking lot where I park. And during those moments, they often will scream at me and they will scream, right, like, go back to China, stop killing American babies. But I think that type of harassment is there at many of our clinics. And so I just try to ignore them and just focus on providing good care.